cake holders.
Like I want to
How
start
cute
talking
is that
about
for a wedding?
Like
I have been thinking about some of the
pushing macaroni over to
You can get a bunch of different ones.
Ow!
Just natural tots.
Get a bunch of
And then they want to show other food.
Potato tots. She would
I
get
mean,
mad.
that's how wedding plans.
You should want this plate that has
Yeah.
the actual tots. The ears.
Animals.
Yeah. But like one kid, it's fun as all
Alright, so here's the deal, guys. If you miss any of this, you can catch it later, because I'm moving on.
Okay.
I'm done.
Good. Good. That's a big deal. You guys got all this stuff when we watched the video last Friday. We're going to go over it. You guys are so decent.
I like to sing in math class.
Mommy thinks that's
But music.
No. Can you get her to smile, please? Okay, so on the Oscars, after they won, I turned off the TV, and that was our and now I second it because it was a celebration day.
What's the black hand?
Man, that's why.
Honestly.
Alright, so you might remember we talked about the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Is that the one that got shot in the little carriage thing by the guy that was being sandwiched?
Ding, 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 ding. Gabriel Princip, that's misspelled, beg your pardon, should be P-R-I-N-C-I-P. I always thought it was Princip. That's how I learned it, so I apparently have been spelling his name wrong for, years, whatever.
Solid.
Anyway, the Black Hand was a terrorist organization, or freedom fighting cell, depending on who you ask, aimed at trying to unify all the various Serbian peoples in the Soviet. It was sponsored by Serbia, the nation. He was actually part of a smaller group called Young Serbia that was part of the Black Hand. So, he just kind of cut that part out. Yeah.
So if we have these two people like on the quiz, can we just put like those descriptions? Like he was the Hungarian prince, and then the other one was a member of the Black Hand.
You got.
That would be about a 1 out of 2. That he got assassinated, that's
And then Gabriel, whatever, was eating a sandwich and then shot him.
You could just summarize that he assassinated Franz Ferdinand.
Oh, he's the one that killed him.
Who was the Black Hand terrorist organization against again? I didn't catch that.
They were Serbian.
They were against Serbian?
No, they were Serbian.
Oh,
They were pro-Serbian. They wanted all the various Serbian peoples in one nation. That's what they wanted, regardless of who, to what country the Serbians actually belong. Yes?
So the Black Hand's kind of like the Black Panthers.
Yeah, kind of. Only mixed with Al-Qaeda.
So they killed others.
Yes.
That
This is
weren't
why-
like them.
This is why, classifying them is so tricky, because if you ask like someone in Serbia today, is he a terrorist or a freedom fighter, they say he's a freedom fighter. He was fighting against the Austro-Hungarians who were oppressing us, yada, 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 which, to be fair, is, kind of true. There was some pretty bad things about being in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Yeah.
What is the Black Panther?
Black Panthers, that's getting off another track. We're not answering that question. Look it up. So, here's the thing is, we're going to have an international war like anything anyone has ever seen before, but there's going to be attempts for peace before it ever happens. First up is the first Olympic Games. Now, let's talk about the Olympics for a second. Have you guys ever studied ancient Greece?
Yes.
Okay. Where did the Olympics come from? What does that mean? What were the Olympics? Yes, answer the rest of the questions,
was it like people died?
No.
No, that was the Coliseum.
They need something to do with the Coliseum, so they did that.
All right, first off, the Olympics was a religious festival aimed at honoring the gods of Mount Olympus. And so the way that you would do this would be a number of religious rites, festivals, but also you'd celebrate with the Great Games. This is the one time we had peace amongst the various city-states. Everyone would come, send their best athletes, they compete, drink, have a grand old time, but there was no war. The idea is, war is a conflict. It's about proving who's best. if you can do this non-violently, so much the better. So the Olympics was really a way for nations to compete and be proud of who they are and proud of their nation without resorting to violence. Do you guys know what you were given if you won the Olympics back in the ancient Greek days? Yeah.
Bronze medal? $1 million.
How much, alcohol?
Back in the day, you were given some gold, yeah, but you were also given a laurel, basically a tree branch, which also was significant. Laurel signified both peace and success. That's where, like you might say, you are trying to offer an olive branch. You guys know that expression?
You know,
Basically means you're going to try to make peace with somebody. Anyways, so the Olympic Games are reinstituted in 1896, and all the various nations of Europe are invited.
So this was an attempt at peace with
Yeah, it was trying to prevent any wars by inviting everybody to come compete in a non-violent way. Now, obviously, it doesn't work, but it was an attempt, right? There's also all kinds of political means to try to prevent war from breaking out. For instance, one of the terms not up here, but you guys should know, is the Concert of Europe. The Concert of Europe was a series of meetings aimed at preventing war. So, like, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but generally speaking, there's a purpose for fighting a war. It's not just because we hate this guy, we're totally going to fight. It's frequently, well, we want this territory, we disagree on this matter. Essentially, war is just politics. So if you can work out the political reasons behind the war without actually having to fight, then suddenly you can prevent the war from ever happening. This has been around since the days of Napoleon. But that being said, it didn't really work out. We're going to have something that just shatters the concert of Europe, and we're going to find out most of that about tomorrow. Because a lot of it comes down to incompetence. The leaders of Europe through much of the 19th century, for the most part, were pretty good. They knew what they were doing. They could prevent this sort of thing happening. But when you get to the early 20th century, you've got some pretty inane, simple-minded leaders in places of power where they just shouldn't have been. So things aren't going to go well. Another thing, though, that these conferences, the Hague Tribunal and the Geneva Convention, aim at doing is making war more civilized. Which seems very weird, because isn't the purpose of war killing people? So how can you have a civilized war? Well, one way is to prevent weapons that will, maim and hurt people as opposed to actually killing them. Certain weapons are seen as particularly cruel. For instance, landmines. You guys know what the purpose of a landmine is?
It's to
Yes.
kill you.
No.
instead of warning.
Nope. To blow someone's legs off.
That's close to kill.
It's not. Here's why. If I kill somebody, they're out of the fight, yeah? If I blow their legs off, I take them out of the fight, but also their best friend next to them, who is not going to leave them behind to die. They're going to grab them and carry them off the battlefield. So I'm not taking out two people as opposed to just one. Yes.
Did you say both of these were trying to make war civilized?
Yes.
Ooh, unless it's something you didn't actually like them, just left them.
True. But, you'll find that most people aren't like this. Yeah.
When wars were being fought, were there boundaries, you can't shoot anybody that's out of this boundary?
No, it's not like, playing tag, but there were targets that were off limits. For instance, you're not allowed to kill civilians. Not being taken to civilians. Yeah, so they say all these weapons that you ban, such as poison gas, landmines, certain calibers of bullets, they just didn't want to use anyways. So again, it doesn't really do much. Nations only answer these kind of things if there's a reason not to. You guys know why people aren't using nukes in wars?
Because they kill a lot of people.
No, I don't care about them. They can die.
Because they'll come back and neutralize.
Exactly. It's called mutual assured destruction. We launch nukes, everyone launches nukes.
Unless we launch a nuke at their nukes, and then I'll make another explosion.
Believe it or not, that's actually what we thought of doing. We have something called the Iron Shield, but there's so many nukes out there, we can't possibly do it. In fact, the other thing that really screws that up is submarines. Because a submarine could be right off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, we would never know it, and before we even know what's happening, they could cap the United States. And that's exactly what we do with our sons. Yes.
Are we known for making good nukes? Or other
Yes.
countries?
We have what are called intercontinental ballistic missiles. That means we can shoot a nuke from here and hit some planets. Now that being said, that would mean our own destruction. It's essentially the same difference of someone having a gun to our head and we have a gun to their head. You pull the trigger, I'll pull the trigger.
But wouldn't want to be dead anyway.
Yeah.
Well, how do they know?
Because here's what happens whenever you die. You go, yeah. Your muscles all tense, so you're going to shoot them.
Well, how do they know who nuked them? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, you guys know what sonar is, yeah? And radar? Yeah, you can see where things are coming from.
Like, you know, I was drinking from Mexico, or Canada.
It could be, but here's the thing: is that's not how these nations play the games.
They
Essentially-
don't know.
It's-
They're immediately gonna accuse us of something we didn't do.
They're not going to accuse; they're just going to kill everyone.
That's accusing.
Huh?
That's accusing.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're going
But
to do.
taking it to a.
Here's the honest question here. Here's the thing is you have to understand. Okay? Because, and this is important, because for 3 days in our history, we were this close, just a matter of one phone call, from killing every human on Earth.
What? That's terrifying.
That's what we would have done. I'm not
United States.
joking. I'm not kidding. I'm saying us and Russians would have killed everyone on Earth.
Including ourselves.
Well, we wouldn't have launched nukes ourselves, but here's the thing: is there's no way we can guarantee we take out all their nukes before they kill us. That's the thing you have to understand. Trust me, people, scientists, politicians, people have been thinking of how to do this for years. And if we could guarantee a strike on somebody without any repercussions, we would have done it. That's my point I'm trying to make. Once you get to that level where the nukes are everywhere, there is no safety net, except for the understanding that the only defense is killing every one of them, and in response they kill us too. That's why no sane person has ever done it.
So it's just kind of like an unsaid mutual agreement, like,
Yeah.
they don't.
It's a concept called MAD, mutual assured destruction.
I feel like that's like some effort to build on before this like shooting things up, because that means everybody can be dead.
Here's the problem: we don't have to. We've already done this.
Wait, we already shot him?
No, we've already voted into these.
Who did it?
The president. You guys know the title Commander in Chief of the military. Air State weapons. Yeah.
Did North Carolina try to do this? About like
Yeah.
What?
Like
North
Carolina. No, not North Carolina.
North
Korea.
Korea?
Oh no, they didn't try to nuke us. They couldn't nuke us. There'd be no way.
So didn't like a bomb come into
Oh yeah, tested nukes for sure, but they generally don't do what was intended, or if they do, it's kind of minimal. No, the worry would be like nuking somewhere else in Asia. That's a reality, and that's terrifying. That's a, so there's that. I'm just saying these are the politics we end up with during the Cold War, which we'll get to later. Anyways,
What's pacifism?
pacifism is the opposite of militarism, which is essentially.
So peace.
Well, yeah, essentially it's a an attempt to eliminate violence, you know, or it's a I've always called it a hatred of violence. That seems a bit strong, but it's true. It's someone who does not like violence. It thinks we should be rid of violence. It's someone who's against violence. Militarism is the opposite of that. Guys, you're doing this. So, the political situation in Europe can be summarized in really one word: paranoid. What I mean by that is, first off, there was a fear that there was a war about to break out. And the concert in Europe had prevented this up to this point, but there's some factors that are going to push Europe into a war. The first up is an arms race that breaks out between the various nations of Europe. You guys know what arms are? Yeah.
You saying? Oh, like guns?
Weapons.
Yes, weapons. So we're going to have a race of them. What that means is producing weapons. If one nation starts producing weapons, starts building up their military, starts spending a fortune on the military, what is every other nation going to assume about it?
They're wanting to start a war.
Right. So in response, we're going to build up our weapons and continue and build up. So if they see us building up weapons, they're going to go like, they're building up weapons, they're going to use them. And rinse, recycle, repeat. It's a positive feedback. In addition, you have aggressive nationalism. Nations like Germany, which there's a really good video that explains how Germany, growing large, kind of triggered all this. Remember how Germany was unified by Otto von Bismarck? That made Germany suddenly the greatest land power in Germany. They desire to expand, much like the rest of the nations of Europe had, but they're going to prevent it. And so there's going to be these pressures for Germany to expand. Russia's the same way. Russia wants to expand to Eastern Europe and also to take over the Ottoman Empire. Lastly, there are alliances of the various nations of Europe. These were secret alliances, secret treaties. Basically, that means that nobody except the members knew who was friends with who. And alliances were binding mutual aid acts, meaning that if the alliance came under attack, all the various members of it had to declare war on that attacker. So this meant that if one nation ended up in war, all nations ended up in war. Which seems like a terrible policy, but it goes back to mutual assured destruction. If everybody is too afraid to start a war because it's going to be a war for everybody, then you don't have to worry about it. But someone does start over a relatively insignificant event, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Now, as we're going to see, this implodes on itself as different alliances start kicking in. Word up. Things are going to get really politically complicated really fast, and you have to know all this. So, ask good questions if you need to know. Yeah.
Well, like, why did they start the whole World War over, like, one man?
That's what we're going to get to right now. That's a great question. I have actually a list for you, actually. A list as to why everybody engages in the war. Because it wouldn't seem like it's tied to it, but I'll show you exactly what I mean. First off with a graph. On the right, we have Russia, France, and Britain, which is collectively known as the Triple Entente. You need to know that. On the left, we have the green. I'm explaining, you don't have to read it. I'm telling you
No,
what it
like,
says right now.
how to spell it.
How to spell entente?
Yeah.
It's in your words at the top. It's the E word. On the left side, we have the Triple Alliance, which is Italy, Germany, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We'll just call it Austro-Hungary because it's faster and easier. Now, notice that the Ottoman Empire isn't part of either of these, but we'll get to them here in just a second. Neither is Bulgaria or Serbia. Now, here's what's going to go down. As the assassination goes through, the Austro-Hungarians are going to respond with an ultimatum to Serbia. An ultimatum is a final set of demands. Your parents probably give these to you all the time. Do this or else. That's an ultimatum. The ultimatum in this case is, whatever we tell you, or we go to war. And here's what they told them. 1, you must disavow any claim to territories in Bulgaria. So Serbia has to stop essentially funding terrorism. Now, Serbia denied they had anything to do with the Black Hand, but they were absolutely funding the Black Hand. So this is like, we caught you in the act, so stop doing it. Number 2, we want to send our own investigative police force into Serbia to find out who these terrorists are so we can get rid of them. This would be utterly unacceptable, even today. This would be like somebody asking the United States if they could, like, for instance, if Britain asked the United States if the British police can come here and arrest American citizens if they tied them to terrorist cells working in Egypt. There would be no way we would allow it. We might be willing to work with them and say, okay, we'll arrest them, but there's no way we're letting British police operate within legal boundaries of the United States. It wouldn't happen. In essence, Austria gave them a set of demands that they would never agree to because Austria wanted to go to war. Yeah.
So Austria said this to Serbia?
Yes. Now, of course, Serbia refuses, so we have a war between Austria and Serbia. Here's where everything goes to hell, right? Because the Austro-Hungarians are now fighting over Serbia and vice versa, they pull in their allies. Germany and Italy should fight with Austro-Hungarian. Italy actually ends up switching sides over to here, and we'll get to that why later. The Ottoman Empire ends up joining it because they originally wanted to be with Britain, but Britain was allied with Russia. Russia wanted the territory in the Ottoman Empire, so if Britain sided with the Ottomans and Russia, they would essentially have to declare on one of their allies, and they didn't want that. So they refused the alliance with the Ottomans. They needed some help from somebody against the Russians. And the Germans were like, hey, we'll help you out. And here's why. Germany was surrounded. They had France to the west, and they had Russia to the east. If they had to fight both, they would be squished like a zit. So, they end up saying, Ottomans, sure, you can come help us out, and basically told them, you just distract Russia. If Russia has to fight a war with you at the same time, they can't concentrate all of the military might in Germany, and that gives us some breathing room so we can fight everybody else. Britain, Russia, and France side with Serbia because Russia sides with Serbia, and they're siding with Russia against Germany, and it pulls everybody into conflict. These eventually evolve into the two sides we have in World War I. The Central Powers, which is located in the center of Europe, that's the name, includes Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire, or Turkey. And then we have the Allies, of which you need to know these. England, France, Italy, Russia. That's it. You don't have to know all the Allied nations, because, oh my God, then we start getting into Algeria, Morocco, France, Finland, Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Serbia, Albania, Greece. There's a laundry list of allies. Just know those four. Now, note, eventually, it'll also be the U.S. But at this point in the war, the United States is neutral, as well as Spain, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Switzerland, and the northern part of Morocco. Now, interestingly enough, Belgium was neutral. They get pulled into the war because of the German plan to attack France, called the Schlieffen Plan. We'll get to that later. So basically, everything falls apart. We'll get to a little bit more detail of that in the video tomorrow. And by the way, if you're confused, guess what? So were they. This is a political cartoon from the era showing all these myriad alliances that no one was really sure what was going on. It was a cluster.
Was there a bear?
That represents Russia. They're always portrayed as a bear. It's Belgium. That's because basically Belgium got punched. That's the Archduke and his family. Of course, you know what happens to them. And that's Gavrilo Princip. I thought so too. And that very well could be a son.
They look like girls.
Well, the thing is that everybody was dressed the same at that time period when they were that young. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I thought so too, but I could be wrong. I was going to put them all up there. So here's the reasons everybody went to. Yeah, I'll give you it's okay. I'll explain them as we go on. First up, Germany. They were there to defend their ally, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I just abbreviated AH. The Austro-Hungarians to punish Serbia, because they were defending itself against the Austro-Hungarian Empire. France, because it wanted to fight Germany. You might remember the Franco-Prussian War. France lost embarrassingly, and so they were out to get a little revenge. But here's the problem. They could not take on Germany. Germany was the strongest land power in Europe at the time. They needed an ally. And this was the prime opportunity to get their revenge on Germany. That's going to be very, very important at the end of the war. Because France pushes to punish Germany. with the peace treaty that's going to happen, one of the first things they're going to do is make Germany accept blame for the war. Basically, Germany has to say, we started this. Did Germany start the war? No, it had nothing to do with it. They started the war just as much as Russia or France or England. But everyone in Europe is worried about Germany because they're this big, strong nation. They seek to punish and weaken Germany as much as possible, also humiliate them. This is going to have very bad effects. It's going to make the rise of Hitler so easy. Put it that way. Next up, France. We're talking about Russia. Pan-Slavic. You guys know what Slavs are?
Sloths?
Slav. S-L-A-V. Slavs are an ethnic group. You find them mostly in Eastern Europe and Russia. The idea here was Slavic nationalism. We want to form a pro-Slavic nation, all Slavs working together. Essentially what it means is Russia wants to expand in Eastern Europe, so that's why they're getting involved with it. Allegedly, it needs to protect the Slavs, which you also find in Serbia, but really isn't that much. England. Allegedly because Belgium gets invaded, but really it's about worrying about Germany. See, Germany was a land power. England's a sea power. They don't care if Germany controls a significant portion of the continent. All they care about is if they control the English Channel, which they don't. France does. But if Germany successfully defeats France, they're going to control the English Channel. And suddenly, they have a way to get into England. The English Channel is only 2 miles wide. People have swam it. Suddenly, the army that Germany has could threaten Britain, and that's a big worry. So, they end up getting the war as well. Next up is the Ottomans. As we said, they wanted to avoid getting gobbled up by Russia, but their ally England wouldn't support them, so they ended up siding with Germany instead. Lastly, Japan. Yeah, Japan was in World War I. They fought with the Allies. Which is getting confusing because when we get to World War II, they switch sides of the axis. Japan is there because Germany has some colonies in the east that they would like to get a hold of, and so they want to keep Germany out of the Pacific and influence or expand their sphere of influence. And again, we can keep going on with this list, but that's where we're going to stop. This is pretty much the end for now. But needless to say, things spiral out of control very, very quickly. The video we're going to watch tomorrow details how this could have been prevented. There were many instances where cooler heads could have prevailed, but due to circumstance or inability, they don't. And we ended up with this war just spiraling out of control. Righto? Any questions on these alliances, anything else like that? Okay. That's it then. You guys are done. I'll go ahead and stop the recording so we don't have like 10 minutes of silence.
You won't be silent.
That's probably